Hello and welcome to another amazing part of What If I Was Reborn as a Fry? HolyJoker wrote this amazing story. Please support them. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Now let's dive in. Chapter 5. Title: Fight of the Flower Knights. Looking at Maggie's dead body, my hand went towards a small pouch in my waist and I took out a cloth and started cleaning the short blade that I had used to kill Maggie. Her dead eyes were still open in shock and seemed to stare out into open space. If it wasn't for the slit throat and the slow-coming paleness of her face, one could have mistaken her for alive. Maybe she was alive? I wondered, but knew that blood magic was dangerous and in this world people could be revived. I knew the woman down in front of me would never see the light of day again. Her death would be absolute and her body would be burnt. I wasn't taking any chances on the matter. None of that mattered now, but what did matter was my next step. Should I go to the Vale? There would be Eddard Stark and Robert Baratheon. It would be good to meet the young men soon to establish a good relationship. No, it would be too soon to do something like that. This year wouldn't be the best either. So instead I should go south. I need to go south to the Reach, the place where knights prance around in tourneys. Will have to win me some glory there too before I start enacting a main plan to power. Also, the Reach is the place where if a couple of people went missing no one would notice. After all, everyone is distracted by the tourneys. Having learned the most theoretical part of blood magic, now I need to get down to the practical part, and that requires the sacrifice of life and flesh. Something that I wasn't willing to do in this place. After all, Tywin isn't a good target to get on the bad side of. General POV. It took Arthur Fry 2 weeks to reach the Riverlands. He had decided to go on a little detour of the lands. The first detour he took was to the Riverlands. After all, that was the place where his father's banners rested. He would never call the place home, but it still was the land that he knew the best. Arthur knew the people here. They were all a little not learned in his eyes, fighting for a land that will always be in the middle of the conflict. If the small folk knew of the lands outside their villages, then they would go and live in the Reach, where food is plenty and no real war will take place on their lands. Unlike the Riverlands, where every single major war had ruined the lands. Still, though, the political side of things and the suffering of people other than him didn't matter. Though if they were his people, then he wouldn't let them suffer, because who knew when the next war came around? Or a revolution. Being needlessly cruel to those below you was stupid. People in power could never understand how the weak fought. That was the weakness that Arthur wanted to avoid at all costs. Thankfully, in his previous life he always had been at the bottom of society. Only due to his shrewdness was he able to climb up the social ladder. As he rode toward a walled city, he smiled. "Come on, boys, we have arrived at Stony September." Arthur lets his men go and rest while calling over the healer. "Let's go to a tavern. There has to be some news about the happenings around here." The healer lion nodded and came with him. "Yes, lord. No need to speak like the small folk here and no need to call me lord either," Arthur said as he walked in tow with his healer. Usually why he had his subordinates talk with small folk so no bandits would attack them at full power. After all, not only do lords have riches, but they also had trained men. So anyone attacking those kinds of people would be able to kill Arthur's entourage without difficulty. But while in cities, he didn't like his subordinates usually calling him lord. Because that would attract all different kinds of attention. Plus it wasn't like bandits were forbidden in town. Most of them were unknown since they killed anyone who saw them. Also, seeing some lord with so few guards might give men enough bravery to attack him for his riches. Still, though, he entered the tavern and acted as if he belonged there. "Can I get a mug of ale and a chicken?" "Yes, sir." He waved the serving girl off before she could say anything anymore. He knew that while most inns worked like normal inns, the real profit came from the prostitution on the side. Usually, the owner's daughter or wife would spread her legs for some no-name knight that might visit this place. It wasn't a good life, so what? At least they earned some money from this instead of the knight breaking his daughter's face and then raping her. The world wasn't kind, Arthur knew that. So living in this world as a good man is like playing a game in hell mode. There was no place for needless kindness. Though stupid cruelty was also not a smart thing. You don't want people to hate you so much that they would give their lives to kill you. Still, though, Arthur amongst all the noise around him concentrated on any useful news the men were talking about. "Didn't you hear? Some men have been forming a bandit group around here. The Lord has declared that he will capture them before the Night's Watch comes around in the next cycle," said one of the men in the tavern. His hoity voice showed that he was drunk. "Seems like the Night's Watch will get its new group of thrives and rapists. Well, Lord Smallwood doesn't have a lot of time for that, a week at best. Pah. They are just some bandits in rags and kitchen knives. I doubt they could even last a day against well-armed knights." "So what? Even a knight in full armor can be killed with a kitchen knife if the blade stabs in the right place. Hearing this, Arthur immediately thought of adjusting his plans. But that wasn't a desirable outcome. Also, he planned to have some blood rituals done soon. He couldn't dwindle around here anymore. Still, though, he knew when a dangerous situation was about and how to dodge these pitfalls in life. After all, if he went and recklessly traveled, just one wrong move and he would die. Unlike movies where enemies attack one by one, in reality, they all attacked at once and humans didn't have eyes on the back of their heads. Even the best swordsman could be killed by 4 competent men. They don't even have to be good at using weapons, just be competent with them. That's why Arthur had plans for a blood ritual to be made soon. Because while it wouldn't make him someone unbeatable, he hoped that this would help him at least not die a dumb death for some dumb reason. Like a drunk farmer suddenly butchering him with a pitchfork. Still, though, with these thoughts in mind, Arthur couldn't just roll over and let things happen slowly. After all, there were benefits to be had here. "Excuse me, good sirs," Arthur interfered to 2 of the men talking on a table in a slurred manner, showing that they were drunk already. They looked at him with annoyance, but Arthur's friendly smile seemed to wash away any annoyance they might have. Or maybe it was the nasty long sword on his back. "Sorry for interrupting your drinks. I will buy you 2 mugs of ale as compensation." He half-heartedly apologized while offering them men new drinks. This made the rugged-looking me smile a little. "That's good of ya. I guess polite men aren't a thing of legend anymore," said the other man, while this one seemed rugged too. As Arthur looked closer, he noticed that this man had experience dealing with nobles. "What can I say? Mama raised me to be polite to strangers." "Who knew, maybe they would be polite to you too," Arthur mentioned. "If the good people of the 7 aren't here to help each other out, then this world would surely be a bleaker place." "Ha, you're right there, lad," said the drunk rugged man. "Well, so can you be polite to me for another 2 mugs of ale? I am sure the serving girl can accommodate." Arthur smiled. "I am quite curious about these new bandits and how the town planned to deal with it. Did the Lord say anything about it?" The other less rugged drunk man chucked. "Lords? They couldn't give a rat's arse for. Happens down here. Those lords think of themselves so high in the sky that they can't even see the little folk like us. Sometimes it's good for certain businesses. And small-time bandits like this thrive on these blinded lords, right?" jokingly added Arthur, making the men chuckle. "Still, though, I heard that some kind of local militia was being formed to combat the bandits." "What's that about?" "Oh, the town people have rallied together to kill the bandits." "Still, though, I wouldn't trust these 2-bit people with forks to go about killing bandits. One of those scrums could get rid of the whole of them." Arthur chuckled at the mention of the joke. He knew that the man before him didn't know shit about battles, yet had the balls to insult others. Small folks, no matter how untrained, can be dangerous once you put a sword in their hand. Anyone can be dangerous with a weapon, though. It took about 10 minutes for Arthur to get the information that he wanted out of the drunk man. It was quite tiring. But he needed the info so he wouldn't go into any situation blindly. Going in without a strategy was what got people killed. But still, Arthur thought about what he should do when he thought about looking for a pet shop around here. It didn't take long for him to find a pet shop. It had dogs, cats, owls, even ravens and other birds. Arthur wasn't interested in any other thing and instead looked for a hawk, one that he easily got. It was a normal brown color and nothing seemed special about it. Well, it didn't need to be special for what Arthur had plans to do with it. Still, though, such things require meticulous planning and must be kept under wraps. As Arthur planned all of this, his eyes shone with malicious intent, a plan slowly forming in his mind on how to use this situation to his advantage. He looked around and saw many beggars on the streets, something that wasn't uncommon in any city. Especially in a medieval world like this, many war veterans were maimed and couldn't support themselves. So Arthur, with a smile on his face, approached the men. "Excuse me, I have a friend who is writing a book about war. He is willing to pay 10 coppers for any injured veteran of war, so who would be willing to take the offer? We even have bread. Don't worry, we will offer you all salt and bread as your guest writes." A couple of hours later, and corpses of homeless men were skewered in the outskirts of the town, in an abandoned warehouse. Arthur had surveyed this place over a dozen times and even bribed some of the guards to be a little laxer on their patrols for the day, and they could go and get some ale with the money he gave them. Arthur didn't care about guest rights or any other tradition of a savage world. He would rather look after himself and make a situation beneficial by abusing these people's naive following of tradition. The corpses were over a dozen and there was barely any light in the warehouse. A strange pattern had been drawn on the ground by using the blood of the corpses. It looked like a star with a reverse question mark in the middle with a circle encompassing them all. Arthur then put the hawk that he had put to sleep in the middle and whispered under his breath in a strange language. The blood then floated from the corpses, turning them all into empty husks, with no blood left in their bodies as it floated away from their cut necks. The blood all floated towards the hawk and seemingly got absorbed by the creature, which turned slightly larder. Its feathers turned red and its beaks black as coal. The hawk's eyes suddenly opened and they were white and looked at Arthur. But he on the other hand was standing still and his eyes were closed. Currently, while Arthur could still move his own body, no longer was he seeing from his own eyes. This ability was similar to skin changing, though Arthur didn't have the talent for the northern magic skill that was inborn in 1 in 1,000 people. Still though, that didn't change anything for ambitious people like Arthur, as an ability useful like this wouldn't be able to escape his grasp. And once he opened his eyes, Arthur's smirk widened even further. Finally, he had something to call a special ability. A skill that could give him an advantage against other people and usable in a fight. Arthur POV. I now have a blood animal familiar. It wasn't like your average animal companion like the Stark's dire wolves. This blood ritual allowing me to see from the hawk's eyes is only a bonus because its real ability was something different. I concentrated and suddenly my vision changed. Even though there was very little light around, I could see through the cracks in the ceiling every detail on them. A hawk-like vision was my new ability. Nothing special, just enhanced vision to be as good as a hawk's, maybe a little better. Now this might not seem much, but coupled with my archery, it becomes something incredible. I can't measure exactly, but hawks can see small details in their prey even from 1.6 kilometers, 1 mile, away. So pretty much, no bows in this age could even shoot that far, meaning within my zone I would be able to snipe people easily. Though I will need some practice first since I had never shot so far before. When a reliable accuracy chance is made, then the bow's range around me will become a death zone for anyone who decided to attack with melee weapons. I was far from being invincible in battle or anything like that, but now I at least had some comfort at being able to kill some people and not be scared by some no-name bandits. Now I had something that gave me an advantage, especially seeing how many fighters the opponent had. Being able to see through the eyes of a hawk was useful too, even if it was just a side effect of the ritual. 3 days later, and the bandits were all eliminated single-handedly by me, Arthur the Unbeatable. A title that would change as soon as I lost in battle, but something like that wouldn't happen anytime soon. After all, killing over 20 bandits by myself was quite the feat. Of course, people might be imagining some battle where I used skills never seen before. But the reality of it was that I picked them up one by one, killing them from a distance with guerrilla warfare. Never even meeting one of them in close combat. Of course, the bard sang about my legendary skills with a sword and how I slid the bandits that way, which is perfect for me. Because the fewer people know about my skill set, the better it is. Also, while experimenting, I discovered many things about my new ability. And it was way more useful than something like flame resistance, which is rarely ever useful. But my Hawkeye ability could be used in every situation. Even close combat allowed me to see better and react faster due to how I catch on small visual hints before an attack even happened. A twitch of the shoulder armor is enough to show me how and where the slash will go. Still needs some work to stop myself from reacting to feint attacks too. But that will take some time to get at such a level. Still though, one-on-one, I doubt attacks will take me by surprise. Everything would be within my sight. Still, arrogance has been many people's downfall, so I don't want to be one of those losers too arrogant to recognize my mistakes. I understand that I am nowhere near invincible and can easily be countered if not careful. But for my fighting style, these abilities are way better than fire resistance of the Targaryens. General POV. In the Reach, a place known for its big yields and food and a huge army. Mace, the Lord Paramount of the Reach, looked with excitement at the tourney grounds. He had heard Arthur Frey had come to participate in the tourney, and that was something big. Recently the man had been to the High Tower and visited the Citadel. The unbeatable Arthur, they say that no matter what fight, no matter the numbers, Arthur Frey would win. That title still stood strong, meaning that the man still hadn't lost in a fight. He had built something like a legendary reputation. Ladies and gentlemen, after the axe throwing we have the melee. The announcer yelled out. Everyone looked at the fields and tried to spot a shield with a red hawk on it. And there it was, in a confident stride, a fully armored Arthur Frey came up. He looked at the stand Mace Tyrell, and the Lord Paramount waved excitedly like a young child meeting his superhero in real life. "Pipe down, you buffoon," said Olenna, looking at her son in disappointment. "Stop making yourself look like a fool. You are a Lord Paramount, not some maid who wants to get on the sheets with a knight." Mace flushed in embarrassment and sat down with a shameful look. This made Olenna snort in annoyance once again, She wished her son at least had a backbone to fight back against her. But he didn't have that either. What a disappointment, thought the old Queen of Thorns. Normally she wouldn't attend tourneys, she found them boring, to be honest. Yet this tourney had a special person joining in. She couldn't help but contemplate about such a man. The undefeated, the bloody hawk, they call him many names. Except for Frey, it was as if he wanted to distance himself from the family. So what's his goal? What's he reaching at? Ever since he had come to the Reach, he hasn't even entered a brother once. One might suspect that he would be into men, but in the Reach there were brothels for that too. Yet he didn't enter those either. Arthur Frey was quite a dilemma to Olenna Tyrell. He was building a fortune by winning tourneys, one after the other. Some even joked that as long as he was in a tourney, then it was better to aim for second place. First place was already stamped for the undefeated man. Still though, that fortune, where was it going? Even while he had been in the Reach, Olenna had no idea where Arthur's money went. Normally a man who lived by the sword would be wasting his gold in feasts and women. Yet he wasn't. At the same time, by now Arthur had earned so much gold that he couldn't just keep bringing it around with him sneakily. But that was it. Even in the Reach, where Olenna had many spies on Alex all day and night, there was no strange behavior that saluted to him annexing his gold somewhere. Olenna had contemplated asking the Iron Bank if maybe Arthur hid his gold there. But she knew that would be a fool's errand, since the Bravos Bank would never sell their clients out, or else their reputation would be ruined. That would also ruin their business and no one would want to make deals with them. On the other hand, as Olenna was thinking those thoughts, Arthur was inside the wooden Colosseum-like structure, where he and another 19 men were in full armor and ready to bash each other. Arthur had a shield with a red hawk on a green and black field painted on it and a normal one-handed sword which was a little on the heavy side. His armor also seemed normal, and the only thing that seemed out of place was just how clean it was. The armor seemed to reflect the sun's rays like a mirror. Of course, this just perfectly would hinder Arthur's opponents when they fought against him. No one would believe that he did it intentionally, and if anyone said otherwise, people would refute them, as Arthur was known through the lands as a knight of honor. This all fit Arthur's agenda. He had helped people all around the 7 kingdoms and even hunted down bandits for free. If anyone tried to refute that, then they would be outed as liars. After all, they couldn't silence so many villages and towns that he had helped. Of course, Arthur never did anything that didn't benefit him in some ways. The bandit hunts done in the name of the 7 and justice were just another one of those things, since no one seemed to question where the bandits' corpses went. Due to this, Arthur always had some sacrifices on hand for his blood magic. "Begin," yelled out the announcer, causing the crowd to cheer in happiness and the knights in the ground to start moving. Everyone got ready to look at Arthur, who was the biggest threat in the tourney. But sadly for them, he had already moved to fight the knight closest to him. Arthur hit the knight's hand with the wide part of his sword, causing the man to drop his weapon. Bomb. In that split second that the other knight was in pain, Arthur used his shield and bashed the man's head, that even due to his helmet, it knocked the man down. He then kicked the knight's sword away and went to his next enemy. Arthur saw a man approaching him and was grateful that these fights and tourneys had the unspoken rule to not attack someone when they were already fighting an enemy. This rule was especially withheld in the Reach. After all, it would be an unknightly thing to do. That was why many lords called tourneys a knights playing war, especially since rarely anyone died at these events. The second knight came running at Arthur full of ferocity, and he swung the sword. Arthur knew that if he tried to block it with his shield, then his arm would swell due to the strength of the hit. So in the split second, he sidestepped, and as the weapon slashed in front of him, he used his sword with all the strength he could muster and hit the sword of the man who had slashed the ground. Clang. The other knight's sword flew away. Arthur's power was quite something to behold at this time, as he trained by modern techniques and had a relatively modern diet. Both meat and vegetables were needed for him to get this kind of muscle strength. As he traveled, he bought quite some chickens from the farmers and hunted a lot of rabbits too. The fight wasn't over, so Arthur got ready to hit with the blunt side of his sword the man's whose weapon flew away. But the man put his hands up and hurriedly said, "I surrender." Arthur looked around and saw 10 people were still left in the melee tourney. They each picked a fight against one person honorably. This was pretty much common courtesy, so fighters didn't gang up on one man and weren't staged. Staging a fight in this tourney would be the same as spitting on the Tyrell's face, so no one would do something like that. All these analytical thoughts went on in Arthur's head. His body moved instinctively as he could see even the smallest of movements with his eyes and predicted where the next move would come from. Arthur's next opponent was a man in full heavy and bulky parkour. Immediately Arthur could tell that the guy in front of him was an amateur. Having this much weight during a fight, while good for defense, it would tire you out way too quickly. During these tourneys, Arthur mostly wore different kinds of chainmail. They were lighter and generally better for these kinds of situations. After all, this wasn't a real war. Just some men fighting, and there was no need for heavy armor. You seem tired already. Maybe you should take a rest. Arthur mocked his opponent, trying to agitate him. Arthur loved his eyesight. Normally people wouldn't be able to tell who was tired under all that armor. But with his eagle-like vision, he could see even the smallest details from the cracks of the armor and rigid movements. "Shut the hell up," yelled the man in anger as he charged at Arthur. But the latter easily dodged the man's swing and used his own momentum to trip his opponent. Arthur then pointed his sword between the crack of the armor of his downed opponent. "I give up," said the man hurriedly. "The Reach really has some wimpy flower knights." Arthur couldn't help but contemplate. Arthur then looked at the other people left and immediately dropped his shield and pulled out another sword. Now this has become a five-way fight. He needed to be going all out during this and not concerning himself with defense too much. He immediately went on the offensive against another knight and he slashed at him with one sword. The knight blocked the slash with his shield, but Arthur used that single second that the opponent was concentrating on blocking the initial slash. Then Arthur pointed his other sword at the man's throat from the space between his armor and helmet. The other three men left looked at Arthur and then another one charged at him, ready to slash and dice. Arthur dropped one of his swords and stepped sideways. Then he grabbed his sword with both hands and used it like a baseball bat. Bomb! He hit the man's helmet, denting it and knocking his opponent out cold. Arthur could hear the crowd cheering for him. Amazing! The strongest knight! Woohoo! Normally people would be distracted by the yells, but Arthur didn't mind them and looked to use the yells to his advantage. He looked at the other two knights who were fighting amongst themselves and could immediately see critical flaws in them. Arthur was able to determine that the one with the light armor was going to lose. He didn't have any experience fighting against armored men. By his estimation to Arthur, the knights in this region were probably the weakest in the 7 kingdoms. They really are just flower knights, thought Arthur. They look good but are shit at fighting. Arthur then found his shield and picked it up. After their battle was over, the armored knight came towards Arthur at a slow pace and he seemed to be careful. But Arthur ran towards him and feinted a slash. He brought up his shield, but instead of slashing, he used his shield to ram into his opponent. Bang! The opponent fell to the ground and Arthur could see his opponent was immediately about to throw his shield on Arthur's face, but he used his feet to step on the man's hands and pointed his sword at his opponent's throat. And the winner, my lords and ladies, is the undefeated Arthur Frey, yelled out the announcer excitedly. The crowd went wild, but Arthur zoned them out. He had just earned 900 gold dragons from the meal, and another 300 from the archery competition. Arthur acted like he didn't care about the money and looked at Mace Tyrell and Olenna. They had their own stand with the best view of the tourney. He could feel the old woman's eyes look at him like a predator who was stalking his prey. The first thoughts that came to Arthur's mind when he saw the Queen of Thorns were, "What a dangerous woman." Chapter 6. Title: Unlimited Scam Work. Arthur v. After my victory, I was invited to the feast. This whole tourney and celebration were being held for some Tyrell that was born recently. The chubby lord next to me continued rambling to my ear about something that I didn't care about. I knew from canon that he will only keep getting fatter and fatter as he gets older. That was Mace Tyrell, the big oaf. "You know, Sir Arthur, you were amazing out there. I have never seen someone with such skill and chivalry," said the stupid oaf. Even the way he spoke showed his stupidity. The person who is talking to me right now is a 20-year-old Mace Tyrell. The guy just keeps talking endlessly about useless stuff, but I just drone him out most of the time. Plus it is not bad to have a friend like him. "Thank you for the compliment, Lord Tyrell, and I would like you to call me Arthur. Even though we just met, I feel like we have been long-time friends." I smiled at him in a friendly manner. It's good to have friends like him. Who knew when they could one day be useful? He smiled like a dumbass at my words and I smiled back. From an outside perspective, it would seem like this was the making of best friends. Olenna looked at me like a hawk. "How is your supper?" "My oaf son seems to enjoy it." "It's very good, my lady," I answered politely, but Olenna wasn't as smart as she thought. Insulting her son like this makes her seem powerful, that's true, but it also showed who was in charge. That was the problem. Mace Tyrell wasn't a man who you should follow. Everyone knew that. If the Tarly went into a revolt, who would win? That's a good question, something that would be unknown. But the answer would be certain if Olenna was to suddenly die. She is already an old woman, and death was always just around the corner for people of her age. "Ha, I am no lady anymore," joked Olenna at me, calling her my lady. Yet we all call you so." A smile adorned my face. "I wonder why that is?" Well, aren't you a smart boy?" she asked, looking at me like a hawk. But my smile didn't falter. "Thanks for the compliment, my lady." "It wasn't a compliment," she clarified, and I knew that calling me a smart boy was her way of being demeaning. Elena was trying to get a rise out of me and figure out what kind of person I was. But sadly for her, that won't be happening. Who cared what people called me? I wasn't some silly lord with a silly mustache, like her weak son. Well, it wasn't an insult either. Because it only becomes an insult depending on how I take it. Deciding to clear up some things, I went on. "What people say isn't important, it doesn't matter. Actions do." After saying that, I pulled out a kitchen knife used to cut the meat and stabbed it on the table. The smile on my face and the loud music stopped anyone from hearing what we were talking about. So they assumed that we were just joking or something along those lines. "Was that a threat?" asked Elena, her face growing colder. I shrugged. "As I said before, my intentions don't matter." "What do you interpret it as, my lady?" "I am not your lady, boy," said Elena. A little anger slipped through in her voice. No one had probably talked to her like this. Especially someone with such a low standing as myself. "Also, what matters here is when my guards bash your head in the ground, should I tell them to stop or not?" The confident smirk was back on her face as she looked at me with a condescending look. "Well, you wouldn't be able to tell them to stop. Or say anything at all for that matter. I am currently sitting at the head of the table with you and your son. I could slaughter you, your son, his wife, and his children. Before any guard could even pull out their swords, I probably would have killed most of the Tyrell family by then." My smile widened. The Tyrell house would enter a civil war to decide who would be the successor amongst the survivors, and at the end, a Tarly would take over. Yes, you could give the order, but your family would be destroyed. Let me give you some advice, Lady Tyrell. Don't try to intimidate madmen, religious men, or men who are way too dangerous and with many secrets. It could end badly for you and House Tyrell. Those kinds of people will drag you into their level and you can't win at their game. That was quite a speech there. She dismissed my words. "I think you shouldn't participate in tourneys in the Reach. Who knows? Accidents in these kinds of sports happen very often. Even a skilled man like you could meet his end in an unfortunate incident." "Oh, she is threatening me. It seems like I have unnerved her more than I thought." Maybe the possibility of me having the power to single-handedly end the Tyrell house at this moment was a shock to her. Because she knew that it was the truth. Who could stop me in an instant close by? Her oaf son who can't even hold a sword, right? No, I would slaughter them all before the guards could even react. Also, even then, there was a small chance of survival if I jumped from the balcony to the river down below Highgarden. Just because someone is called Lord or Lady doesn't suddenly make them invincible. Even though it gives the illusion of being so sometimes. But that's it, it's just an illusion. People die what they are killed. That's a fact of the world. Even kings die like common men. Well, that's quite late to learn such a thing, Lady Olenna. But a wise man once said that life is a learning experience. I said while getting up from the table and walking off. One look at Olenna was enough to stop her from doing anything stupid like send guards at me while I was away from public eyes. While she was very politically smart, she didn't know brash men of war can be. They don't give a sh*t about her logic. After that whole ordeal with Olenna, I decided to walk around a little. Mace Tyrell just became a useless friend because Olenna had his claws in him. He would be more useful if he was dead, but sadly I can't go around killing him and it would be too hard. But as I walked on the outskirts of the party where there were only some sleeping drunk servants, amongst them was a pretty woman wearing an expensive dress and nice jewelry. She had brown hair and green eyes that stuck out. Damn, these inbreed noble ladies are good looking. When was the last time I laid with a woman? Right, ever since Maggie, I don't think I laid with anyone else. Kind of forgot about and lost such things once the amazing blood magic came around. Even sex seemed something secondary in comparison to such power. By her wine glass and slouched appearance, the woman wasn't in a good mood. Also, judging by her clothing, she was some noble lady or a lord's daughter. A pretty one too, so probably the wife or daughter of a powerful lord. If my memory serves me right, this should be Lady Oakhart or the lord's sister. I believe she should have already been married to some knight that served her house. Well, whatever, it doesn't matter. Hello there, my lady. You shouldn't stay here with degenerates. Let me escort you back to your family. The woman looked at me, and by the look in her eyes, I could instantly tell that she was drunk. In my first life, one had to learn to notice when someone was drunk. They would say many things and are easier to persuade. Huh? Who the hell are you? She asked. Her face showed anger, but her words seemed curious. A true lady, trained to hide her real thoughts, Sadly, that didn't work once she was drunk. Judging by her demeanor, something is annoying her. In a party like this with nobles and pretty maids around, it's easy to guess what was happening. Probably her husband was messing around with a maid or some other noble lady. This woman would be better to do it with than some maid because servants can't help but talk. But this noble woman won't speak or spread any rumors about me. Even if this knight ended up with a child in her belly, she would just claim that it was her husband's kid, especially since my features of dark hair and eyes were very common. My name is Robert, nice to meet you, my lady. How is your husband doing? I asked, intentionally guiding the conversation towards her husband. That immediately put a sour look on her face. Damn it. She banged her fist on the edge of the balcony. What is so good about some peasant maid with rough hands? That damn idiot. Yes, he must be the idiot of idiots, I agreed with her. She looked at me in surprise as our faces got closer. To not recognize your beauty, the greatest fool indeed. A maid could never even compare to you. I would kill 100 maids to just kiss you. She looked me in the eyes and smirked. Let me take you somewhere, a place where we can have our privacy. Married and jealous women are so easy to get into bed with. Say some lie that makes them feel special and then they will easily fall in your hands. Welp, a pretty married woman so young is easy to find in these times. If I give her a child, could I use that as blackmail against her in the future? Normal POV. 1 year had passed since Arthur's tourney in the Reach. Since then he decided to move away. He might have said a lot of words in front of Olenna, but he wasn't stupid to take a threat from her lightly. Though he liked for people to fear him to keep them in line, he also loved his life way more than that. Olenna was a dangerous woman with the Reach at her fingertips. So threatening her and staying in her house would be an invitation to disaster. So he did the logical thing and he decided to go to other lands that he had planned. That being the Vale, he had just arrived at the castle of House Arryn. Since Arthur was now 18, he couldn't help but smile a little. His body had grown up quite a bit due to his good and nutritious lifestyle and regular exercise. Currently, Arthur was in a bed on the Eyrie, a warm body was next to him, it was a woman. He could feel the two flesh minds press on him. Right, I forgot about the serving girl I took to bed yesterday, thought Arthur as he pushed away the woman leaning on him and got up. As soon as he did so, his mind immediately wandered toward his plans. He wasn't in the Vale to compete in any tourneys, though the place had a lot of knights. The Vale didn't have as many tourneys as the Reach or Westerlands had. But that didn't matter. Arthur had come here to make friends with Robert Baratheon. This was a good investment that could have amazing returns. Though the plan had a few hiccups, as Arthur had just arrived in the Vale and Robert wasn't here, and neither was Jon Arryn. The latter had a meeting in Gulltown and had taken his 2 protégés with him. Soon he should be able to meet with Jon Arryn. Though this had been a little bad luck, Arthur was glad that while they were coming here no mountain clansmen attacked him. Though these days waiting for them hadn't been boring. Plenty of beautiful girls in the Eyrie, both noble and common. At least his reputation as a knight helped get access to both kinds of girls quite easily. There were even some virgin girls amongst them. Their future husbands will be having a field day on their wedding night. What? Because Arthur just taught their wives tricks from the modern world. Leon. Arthur called out to his healer. As if the man had been waiting behind the door, he immediately came in. Yes, lord. The usual? He asked. Arthur frowned as he and his healer walked off the room, leaving the sleeping girl behind. What was the name of the girl? The personal healer cleared his throat and started to explain. She is a high-born girl, her mother recently dashed. I don't care about her life story, Leon. I need her name, just her last name. Arthur didn't care about the girl's life, he already knew some of it from drowning out the girl's conversation last night. Acting like he was listening to her troubles had already allowed him to pick up some things about the girl. It's Hersey, I believe. A high dash. Okay, then that's enough. Arthur interrupted him again as they went to the kitchens to get some food. Wait, doesn't she have a sister too? Yeah, I believe so, confirmed Leon. Her sister had nicer tits, he said casually, thinking back on a blonde figure that vaguely resembled the woman he had slept with last night. Also get 105 silver stags for each of the men you included. Today is payday. Leon smiled. Working for Arthur was good. What a common folk would make in half a year they made in 1 week. So it was quite good. Of course, none of them knew that Arthur paid them so well because he wanted them to become the best meat shields they could be. After all, he wasn't arrow-proof. Though he never said it out loud, Arthur's current wealth wasn't something too big. He had about 2,200 gold dragons available for his plans. He had fought in over 20 tourneys, but most of them had the reward of 100 gold dragons or less. Only big families hold grand tourneys with rewards above 500 gold dragons. So thinking about it now, back in the show when Robert wanted a tourney with the winner rewarded 50,000 gold dragons. Arthur could understand why Ned Stark at the time considered it outrageous. Still, though, 2,000 gold dragons were enough to buy a small castle. But at the same time, this was wealth that many people would consider worth risking their lives for. Also, the tourneys were public, so there wasn't a way to hide his income from determined people. Hell, Arthur sometimes suspected that some of his men might mutiny if he didn't use sweet words to dissuade them. By now, though, he didn't keep his wealth on himself. Instead, he had his hawk pick up small pouches and hide them in certain places where no human would ever go to, and even if they wanted, they couldn't. Though even through all this, Arthur made sure to use flowered words and promises of wealth that kept his men very satisfied. That way he could use them as sacrifices in case of an emergency. Lord. Suddenly a servant rushed into the kitchens and rushed towards Arthur. Lord Aaron has arrived. Arthur smirked. Having a good relationship with the servants was quite useful. Arthur 6. It didn't take long to get invited to some drinking party. Some woman that was flirting with Robert told me about it. Cheers to Arthur, the undefeated. The Red Hawk. They have so many names for you, Frey. They say that you have never lost a fight since you were born, even during training against squires twice your age you defeated them, said Robert in a jovial mood as he slapped my shoulder. I smiled at him. What can I say? Titles seem to breed more titles. Bah, you humble fuck. Act at least a little proud or you will make me feel like a goddamn. It seemed like the future fat king was about to say something, but he turned around and almost threw up. Anyway, what were we talking about again? He slapped my shoulder again and I had to stop myself from wincing. Though Robert was doing this playfully, his strength was unmistakable. This drunk guy was pretty strong, I must admit that. Well, time to fake drink something and become fake drunk. 2 hours later and everyone was a little hammered, even the ones who didn't usually drink. John Aaron seemed a little tipsy too. Well, what can I say, Rob? I am just that good. I answered him with a drunken arrogant smirk on my face. The baddest man in this world. I am undefeated. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. So your ego comes out when you drink. Well, it happens to the best of us. Robert smiled back, his face flushed from drinking the same amount as 4 men. Really want to try then? I bet I will break your record in no time. I made a face like I swallowed a lemon and put my head on the table. Listen, Rob, why, you are drunk. That is unfair for me to fight you like that. And that is a lie. I have been sipping on my 5th glass of wine, but I have been spilling all of them under the table. I was not dumb enough to dull my senses in a world like Game of Thrones. If someone had my knowledge of the story and still got drunk, then they should just slit their throats instead. He then pointed a shaking finger toward me. It's a goddamn miracle he wasn't dead by the time Cannon came around, by the amount he usually drank. Why, you are drunk too, reasoned Robert in a drunken manner while stuttering away. My eyes widened as if I just had a big revelation. Oh yeah, you are right. Well then let's go outside and fight. I went outside. The guards gave me a blunt sword and a shield. They also give Robert a light metal hammer without spikes. Looking at the audience, I could see them snickering at us. Some people even seemed to want and see me lose this battle, breaking my legend of being undefeated. Hey, does anyone want to bet? I will take all bets against me. Saying so resolutely, I spread my arms and motioning them to come at me. By the end, the people who knew Robert and of his monstrous strength, all together bet 800 gold dragons against me. Well, it is pretty logical on their part. After all, a drunk guy can't dodge very well and Robert has the advantage of strength against me. I was known for my technique, which wouldn't be any good in a drunk state. Oh boy, they are about to get scammed so hard. John Aaron, the white-haired man in his early elderly age, came towards us. He just rubbed his eyes, probably having heard what had happened already. Okay, I, John Aaron, as Lord Paramount of the Vale, I will be the judge. I could see the small smirk on his face, which was filled with anticipation on who would win. Okay, now I was sure that John Aaron had a little too much to drink, allowing us to fight while drunk, and all that didn't seem like him at all. He also said his title, it must be a habit. Begin. He yelled out of nowhere without even counting down. Robert rushed at me without even a second thought in his mind, swinging his hammer like a madman towards my head. He wanted to bash my skull on the ground, and the man was pretty fast too. Still, though, he wasn't fast enough as I jumped back, dodging the hammer swipe easily. Whoa. Even while drunk, look at that perfect form, said one of the spectators while he pointed at me. Ugh. Robert grunted and swiped his hammer at me from overhead. This time I easily sidestepped, and as the hammer landed on the ground, I stepped on the hammer, making Robert unable to pull it up. Bomb. Asterisk. Then I bashed his head in with my shield. Blood came out of his nose as he fell to the ground, unconscious. Well, I just became 800 gold dragons richer. Now I had 3,000 gold dragons in total. That means having the buying power of around $30 million. Damn, I love medieval societies, the small fold work and I just become richer. I looked at my earning. Hiccup asterisk. Still with my act on, after all, couldn't have other people know that the righteous knight Arthur was out here scamming rich kids out of their money. Oh, leave my earnings in a pouch. At the side of the ring, I am not done yet. After announcing that, my gaze wandered toward the people around. A plan formed on my head. Whoa. I suddenly stumbled and fell on my butt like a drunk who could barely stand up. I then looked at the gray-eyed young man helping Robert get up. How about you, Ned, want to give it a try? I will again take all the bets that are placed against me. What, no way he beat Lord Robert so easily. I am not betting again, said a guy from the audience. Are you crazy? Lord Stark is completely sober and he is a good fighter, as good as Lord Baratheon. No matter how good Arthur is, I don't believe he can beat Lord Stark drunk, argued another audience member. Oh, thank you, random guy. Eddard frowned a little at the situation in front of him. Chapter 7. Title, and the Nobel Prize goes to Arthur. 8. Eddard looked around and didn't know whether to fight me or not. But by now I had the hearts of the audience set aflame. They had already lost quite some money against me. They wanted to at least see my face bashed in a little. Come on, Stark. Break that drunk's face. Just look at that smug look. His face is pretty much begging to be punched. Go, Stark. I just bet all my savings on you. I did the same. Me too. The crowd yelled out for a fight. They wanted it. People like this, with their blood that had gone to their head, were easy to point in the direction I wanted them to go. Eddard felt the peer pressure and walked forward after I did some gestures for him to come. He whispered something under his breath, but I didn't pay attention to it as my eyes were on the money pile that had been bet against me. The healer in my group held up 5 fingers once he saw me looking in his direction, meaning that I would get 500 gold dragons if I won this fight. Clang. My shield fell on the ground as if it had slipped out of my fingers by accident. Come on, people. Can't you see how drunk I am? Bet some more money. Oh, oops, sorry, it slipped out of my hand. I sheepishly apologized and went to pick up my shield. Ned looked at this with a strange look on his face. I don't think it would be honorable to count this as a duel, Lord Arthur. He was easy to read. Most likely he didn't want to ruin my record of winning streaks. After all, my fame would drop significantly if I lost, as my whole gimmick was being unbeatable with the sword. It almost made me feel bad for using a guy like him. But sadly that's how the world worked. Usually, the good people would always be used by the bad. Well, I don't make the rules on how reality works, I only abuse those rules. Hey now, Ned, no need with the F formality, call me Arthur or just Ari for short. We are friends after all, aren't we? I said to him while stuttering through my words. Acting drunk wasn't hard, I just needed to think what I would do if my reasoning was lowered and the thought process hit the gutter. He smirked. Yes, I guess we are friends. You can call me Ned too. Though you already seem to be doing so. I drunkenly smirked too and gave him a thumbs up. Well, we better start the fight before I piss myself. Ha ha ha. Ned laughed, finding the situation funny, as his worries about my future seemed to disappear. Begin. John Aaron announced the start of the fight. Immediately after he said that, I dropped my sword and shield on the ground before jumping into action. I ran towards him and Ned slashed at me horizontally, but I ducked under his swing as low as I could. While running forward, Ned's arms couldn't move back fast enough to defend himself as he was holding into his sword. Also, he had never seen a situation like this, so his body couldn't react in time as I extended my palm and pushed his chin while tangling my leg with his. He immediately started falling as his core weight was affected by gravity. But he also used one of his hands to grab me by the shirt to pull me down with him. I fell, and as I did so, my foot was already nested into his other sword-wielding hand and slammed on the ground. I ended up sitting on his stomach, while his hand with the sword got squished by my leg. This made him unable to react as I did a stabbing motion toward him, but then I looked at my empty hand. Ah, right, I dropped my weapon, I said jokingly and waved my hand around. Though as the fight wasn't over, I looked at my hand and a look of realization drew on my face. Oh well. Bomb. I punched Ned on the face once, twice, and then he was knocked out. I felt a crunch while punching. Did I break his nose? To finish my drunken act, I got up and started dancing and doing strange dance moves for this world. Like the moonwalk while singing around. Another one bites the dust. Toot Turutun, I even tried to make the beat of the song with my voice. But it didn't sound well at all, and I noticed the people looking at me strangely. "Bahan, look at him go. You're an amazing singer," yelled out one of the audience members while he laughed along. "Hey man, I lost money to that guy. Can you stop celebrating?" But some people had lost a lot of money, so they weren't in a good mood. "Well, sorry for you being a dumbass, bro, Baha." Some others laughed at the man's misfortune. Yeah, a special kind of stupidity is needed to have the brain to bet in a drunk fight. The people who didn't have the money to bet on these fights mocked the people who did have the money and lost it. After I do some more stupid stuff to sell it off as I was drunk. I looked around and mentioned towards the other people around me. "So do I have any other challengers?" I rubbed my shoulder slightly and stretched, acting as though I didn't say anything. The fatigue was getting to me. Playing myself as an honorable man who doesn't know what to stop fighting was the best play I could make to earn me some money. I had another 12 challengers that night. Each of them lost against me, and my money pile only grew larger as at the end I no longer needed to fake the signs of fatigue. Yet I still defeated every single drunk man that came to fight me that night. Not even once did I lose. Fighting drunk people truly was easier than expected. Even though I wasn't a martial artist in my real life, some moves could still break even the strongest of knights. For example, one fight was settled with me grabbing my opponent's hair. Once someone does that, they can guide the body of the opponent wherever they want, so it was illegal in all forms of fighting sports. But there were none of those rules out here in medieval times. The night though wasn't very profitable after Ned, as already most of the people had lost their money. Still, there were quite some winnings, and I decided to spread a huge sum amongst my companions to keep them loyal. The men were overjoyed. After all, that is an astronomical amount of money for them. They could live the rest of their lives relatively easily in any village they might decide to settle on. But by now, I was sure that their loyalty to me was hard as steel, and they would follow me along. After all, instead of ending up as some farmer by leaving now, they could live like lords. Using their greed to my advantage wasn't hard. None of them had any experience dealing with someone like me. Time passed and I had to leave the Vale. I couldn't stay here forever. My ambitions wouldn't end with just being a glorified bodyguard. Now I needed to start building my army, because magic was something amazing. It wasn't necessarily too strong. 20 well-armed knights could tear me apart with no difficulty if it came down to it. So that was why getting a big army was needed. In this place I had a lot of fun with a lot of young girls. Also, *King, some noble girls who were fostered here in the Vale. Probably some bastards will start running around now, but none of that mattered. Every lord had their bastard children when they were young. But of course when they got older they acted like the kids didn't exist. I haven't decided what to do with mine yet. Maybe I will take them under my wings? Or maybe not. That's debatable, but I knew for sure I won't be like Ned and create drama in the family because of his bastard. The women of this world were also easy to trick. I just had to act as their knight in shining armor and use some cliché lines from some books. After that, they just pretty much threw themselves at me to take their maiden hand, virginity, before they got married to some old man who probably won't even be able to get it up. In the end, I had to do my duty as a knight to always help maidens in their time of need. My delving into blood magic also became heavier as I started delving deep into the prophetic side and started reading people's fates after they got drunk. Apparently one of my guards would die before me, so keeping him to my side would be a good idea. Though something creepy kept happening every time I used divination. Usually I forgot the visions that I saw, and they could be highly inaccurate or a metaphor. But something stood out when I decided to write my memories before forgetting them. This was my little loophole for the magic. Yet, all the writings had something written in them on top of that person's fate. Like someone was sending me a warning through a prophecy? Beware of who the true players of the game are. These thoughts all ran through my mind, and I saw the giant statue of Bravos in the distance. The ship rocketed due to the wave, and the small slip of paper that I had read hundreds of times slipped out of my fingers and landed into the water. It felt like the future me was sending me a warning. And even though the giant of Essos stood before me, one of the biggest statues in this world, my eyes tracked into the paper that fell in the water. The limit of blood magic was that one could only read a person's fate 3 times in their life, and if the magic user revealed too much, their blood vessels would erupt. So I always had to write in riddles, even to myself. It was a shame a blood mage can't read his own fate, but this warning had put me on edge. Still, though, I knew that worrying about such things was useless, as prophecies aren't necessarily unbreakable. So my decisions will be my own in the end. But taking that into account, Bravos should be a good place to start. My tourney fighting days are now over, time to start playing for real. East shall be your ghost's fortune. That was another fate that one of the guards got. The ghost here was obviously me, as I was the one possessing a body. But if this fate reading led me on an illogical path, I will immediately abandon it. I shook my head to get rid of such thoughts and looked at the city in front of me. Bravos, a city of trade. It is a place of trade where I could use my talents and modern trading knowledge to its fullest potential. Chapter 8. Title: Unlimited Blackmail Works. In a balcony of one of the lavish houses in Bravos, Arthur leaned on the railing and looked at the giant statue that could be seen even from here. He was wearing loose clothes and his hair had grown a little taller now, but he let it grow as he no longer would be fighting anyone anymore. What he needed now was to be charming, something that combined both physical appearance and personality. "Aren't you coming in, dear?" The voice of a woman reverberated from behind him as she got closer and hugged Arthur from behind. He noticed that she was still naked but didn't turn to look at her. "I wish I had met you as soon as you came to Bravos. We could have spent so much time together like this." Arthur smiled, though the joy didn't seem to reach his eyes. "I had short hair back then, almost bald. Are you into bald men?" "Haha," she laughed gently. "No, but I would love to see you bald and bashing the heads of brutes. Weren't you some kind of warrior from the other side of the sea? I heard some rumors of you being undefeated in battle." "Those days are long gone now," said Arthur, turning around and looking at the young woman who was around his age. She had dark hair and dazzling blue eyes, her body seemed to have been built for the pleasure of men and her figure was quite voluptuous. "I came here to find a woman who wouldn't be too concerned with my martial strength. Sure, I can fight very well and would fight if the woman I love was in danger. But it doesn't mean that I am that brute any longer. Back then for me, fights were everything and even fucking was secondary." The woman smiled and leaned forward, giving him a kiss, and Arthur reciprocated. Her eyes were filled with love. His eyes on the other hand were dark and unreadable. Arthur recounted what had happened since he came to Bravos. He had been in this place for about a year now, and he hadn't made any moves yet. Instead, he observed how the market wrecked and how everyday people used it. Each day was spent. After all, going into something headfirst without knowing how it worked was not a smart decision. He couldn't just swipe a wand and make money, so he had to learn how the trade in Bravos worked and how to make himself an integral part of it. The woman in his arms was the daughter of some big-shot merchant here, though her status was quite low within the merchant's family as her mother was a prostitute. Though the young woman knew quite a lot about secret things within the trading world, as her father talked about inside deals at the dinner table to her brothers and other siblings. Now she simply relayed those things to her secret lover. After spending some time in the young woman's house, Arthur finally left around midday. He closed his eyes as soon as he walked outside, and immediately he could see from a bird's point of view. After making sure he wasn't tailed, he walked back to his modest house with a red hawk always tailing him from the sky and keeping an eye out for any suspicious people. Once Arthur walked inside his house, he saw his men doing their things. The healer was making some medicine, and the others were playing some Bravosi game that had the possibility to lose your fingers. "Arthur, 9. Keenness," I called out to one of the guards who had followed me from the village. He was the one playing the dangerous game while the others looked on. "Don't lose your fingers. What will your wife have to pleasure her if you lose them?" "Yeah, I mean with how small your dick is I think your wife might still be a maiden," added another guy jokingly. "Maybe I can help you with that." Keenness on the other hand shook his head. "It's average size." "Man, I knew I shouldn't have told you about my insecurities. Men are like hungry wolves, Keenness. Once they spot weakness they will do everything they can to devious you," I advised him as a smirk slowly appeared on my face. Unlike the fake smiles used to charm some lonely wives, this was a genuine smile. Even in the worst situations, one must have a sense of humor about these things. Also, the size doesn't matter to other guys, you ain't fucking them. But what matters is how big you say your cock is. "Listen to him, Keenness. One day you might grow to be one of us," said one of the men jokingly. "We are the Big Dick Gang. We have conquered all the women of Westeros, so that's the real reason we came east. I wonder how the whores in Westeros cry out for my presence." "Shut the hell up, Butch. All the whores call you the one-pump chump, so stop bragging about your game because you have got none," Keenness added, this being his turn to make fun of Butch. I only shook my head as the men's argument continued and I just walked towards the basement where the winery was. Being underground and in the dark kept the place kinda cold, so the drinks and beverages were cold. Kind of like the medieval version of a fridge. The place was dark and I didn't bring a torch with me. Instead, I counted the steps and used my enhanced vision to find the correct place. Once there I took out my sword and dug it in the ground. About an inch or two deep on the ground I felt some resistance. Yep, this was the correct place. Using my sword I easily took out the dirt and pulled out a heavy box that was attached to a chain. Opening it revealed to be a pile of gold inside, almost 5,000 gold dragons. I don't trust any of my men with this amount of wealth, so only I knew where this was hidden. After taking the box, I put it on a small horse carriage together with my guards on tow as they sat together with me in the carriage while the healer drove. Since my house was in a well-populated area, no man would dare commit a crime here as the guards would be upon them in no time. I had purposefully chosen this place and spent quite some gold to get a relatively small place for such a high price. Sure, I had my guards, but they weren't something that could fight 20 thieves. The best victories were those that are won without even fighting. As we arrived at the Iron Bank, my men carried my big box of gold inside the place. I looked at the men from the corner of my eyes, and both Keenis and Butch, who were joking as if we were all good friends, now they looked at the chest and greed inevitably appeared in their gazes. But they knew they couldn't do anything here. Also, I don't blame them, this amount of money would set them for life. Most people would have the same look in their positions. Sir, please come this way, Banker Gillard has told us of your arrival. A servant came towards them and he was dressed smartly. He then led us all towards a private room. The room we entered wasn't anything special. It had a simple desk and 3 men were already waiting there for me. I recognized the one sitting in the middle. He was a chubby man with a declining hairline and looked like he was 40 when in actuality he was only 25 years old. He is the man known as Gillard. The other 2, I had no idea who they were. Welcome, Sir Arthur. Gillard greeted me and he had a giant smile on his face. I hear that you must be here to make a deposit to the Iron Bank? Immediately the 2 other colleagues gave him a pointed look. He had just inadvertently told me that the Iron Bank had been keeping an eye on me. But Gillard didn't seem to notice the men's looks. Whether he was faking his naivety or not was a mystery even to me. It seems that you are well informed, I remarked, looking the man in the eye. And you would be half correct, good sirs, but I am also here to make a purchase. Well, good, that's good for the both of us. I can guarantee you that the Iron Banks offers the best deals, Gillard stated enthusiastically, immediately earning his colleagues' ire as they looked at him with anger. Bankers were usually very discreet about their emotions, and showing too much could lead to a loss of profit. Anyway, what do you need to purchase, Sir Arthur? One of the other men intervened. I am sure that we can help you. It was easy to see that Gillard and the other colleagues of his weren't as friendly with each other. But that was extremely weird. True, I had some backhanded dealings with Gillard and we have exchanged information in the past. Still though, showing a not unified front while in the presence of others was bad. The Iron Bank didn't become the strongest bank in Essos by having people incompetent in their midst. Something was wrong here, and I needed to find out before things developed into an unfavorable situation. I need a ship. Getting straight to the point, I decided to test how these people would react. A mid-sized galleon that is suited for a merchant. I don't know my ships too well, so I will leave the details to you guys. Though I said that, it was all a lie. Spending time in the docks looking at trade meant that I knew quite a bit about all kinds of ships and what one was better for what. Yet, none of this needed to be known by these guys. The man to the right nodded and spoke for the first time. We understand the Iron Bank will do its best to satisfy your demands. A budget of 800 gold dragons would be needed for the ship's construction. I frowned at that and expressed my displeasure outwardly too. There was no need to hide my emotions this time. 800? That's too expensive, even in Gulltown ships are cheaper. I thought Bravos had a good trade on ships, maybe I was wrong? Buying a ship in Gulltown cost about 600 gold dragons, but saying something like that out loud would immediately impede my negotiations with them. Because that said that I would be okay with that price or something just a little lower. I needed to start on an equal footing with them in this negotiation. Also, Gillard was someone I had on the inside and we exchanged information countless times for each other's benefit. But both of us will look after our own interests, so he will look out for himself and his profits first and foremost. How about 785 gold dragons? Offered the man on the left. I acted like my mind was elsewhere thinking about something before replying to them. If you can wiggle me down to 400 gold dragons, then we have a deal. In the whole of Essos, you won't find the kind of ship you are looking for with 400 gold dragons, said the man on the right, shaking his head as if to prove his point. 780 is the best I can do. You're right? As if you have traveled all of Essos and know that for a fact? He was short-selling me to raise his profits on this deal. They know that I have the money, so they will try to get me a deal that would require me to spend a lot. I know that this money might seem a lot, I pointed at the box, but there are other things I need to buy too. So I can't pay more than 410 gold dragons. What would those things be? Asked Gillard with an innocent look on his face. Now, this might seem like a simple question and many would answer due to how foolish Gillard had been acting. Many people would lower their guard against someone who seemed dumber than them. Sadly for them, Ever since I entered this meeting, my opinion on Gillard was changed and he was suspicious. First, I already knew that he played himself to be more stupid than he usually was. Second, the Iron Bank had hundreds of bankers and employees under him, so why did he come to deal with me? After all, the chances of getting him were lower than 1% due to the hundreds of employees like him. So the end conclusion is that the Iron Bank knew of my deals with him, and he possibly told them, and now they want to use him to get a profit over me. Keep dreaming. I had knowledge of the future and so many scams and illegal strategies that even the hundreds of bankers' minds combined couldn't come up with. My strategies were hundreds, possibly thousands of years ahead of theirs. These thoughts all went through my mind in a couple of seconds and I answered, well, there are many things that a merchant needs to conduct his trade. I am sure the Iron Bank knows these things better than me. Though their faces didn't show anything, I could see by their rigid movements that they were annoyed by my answer that pretty much told them nothing. A slight tightening of Gillard's fist showed that he was getting irritated. Yeah, I would be very irritated too. For these bankers, time was money. They could be dealing with some more schmuck that would be easy to get money out of instead of me. Anyway, 410 gold dragons is daylight robbery. We won't be able to make any profit with that, said the man on the left. Gillard nodded his head too. Yeah, like I would trust anything that came out of you guys' mouths. I doubt you would make a deal in which there is no profit. I understand your predicament, but my money was hard-earned too. I risked my life every day on tourneys, fighting and coming close to death many times. So I hope you understand how cheap I could be sometimes. So how about 413 gold dragons? We continued our negotiations for hours until the sun was about to set. Hours upon hours passed and the bankers kept getting more irritated. I was increasing each offer with only 2 or 3 gold dragons, never too much, so this would waste time. A very inefficient method of negotiating that would only waste time. Time that I had to waste, and these bankers would lose more money the more time they spent here. It was obvious how this would end. Fine. 500 gold it is, yelled out the one on the right. He seemed irritated by the deal and just walked out. After that, I deposited the money I had with me and we all went to our own homes. This was a good deal for me. 500 gold dragons for a Bravosi ship was something most people wouldn't be able to get. Not many would think this was all so I could get a good deal. That's exactly what I want them to think. While riding in the carriage, I closed one of my eyes and my vision changed. Initially, it was very disorienting. After all, I was looking from one of the eyes of my hawk and the other in the real me. It almost made me want to throw up. The human brain wasn't made to comprehend looking at the world like this. My hawk was looking straight at the Iron Bank's back doors where only the staff use. It took until I was comfortable and in bed for someone to come out of the back door. And the person was someone I recognized. He also had 2 guards with him. This showed that it wasn't just some guy going out to get some dinner. My hawk followed him and I saw every movement the man and his guards made. Looking for any secret messages, spy contact, suddenly bumping into people or anything like that. He went towards a part of Bravos that wasn't popular due to the aggressive residents and a non-profitable area. This was called the Green Canal, and as he went there he talked with someone who seemed to run a ship-making workshop. But this workshop wouldn't be noticeable to any normal merchant or people. Who would anyone make a business in such a remote place? I cut off the connection with my hawk and opened my eyes and looked at the ceiling of my bedroom. The last order to the hawk was to follow the head shipwright, which was surprisingly a woman. Well, I didn't care about gender if she made me good ships. But I would like to make sure if I could cut even more middlemen to get the best price possible. The next day at the break of dawn, the Iron Bank sent me a notice that I would get my newly made ship in 5 days. It was surprising how fast they seemed to work. A ship in 5 days? Or were the ships pre-made? How long does it take to make a ship normally? For the average workforce it would take around a month. I need someone in the know for these things. One doesn't enter a business without knowing everything there is to know about it. Only then can one reduce the chances of failure. With those thoughts in mind, I put on some fancy clothes which consisted of some robes that looked expensive, and told 2 of my men to accompany me just in case. Also hiding some weapons under the robe was an easy task. If this meeting goes well, then I think my lucky break might just come smacking me in the face. I possibly found myself a golden goose. I went towards the shipbuilding place with my guards following me. The place was quite neat and I noticed many things that a bird's point of view wouldn't. Like the wood planks, ship keels all around with a couple of people working on them. Hello, excuse me, I called out, trying to find the head shipwright of this place. Then a tall, slightly muscled tan woman came out of the tent. She was the one who talked with the Iron Bank employee yesterday. What can I help you with, sir? She asked, trying to sound polite, but it was clear she didn't care how welcoming she sounded. I require some middle-sized merchant ships. She seemed to think for a while and finally said, 400 gold pieces for each of them. That should be somewhere around 370 gold dragons. Which was already cheaper than the 500 the Iron Bank told me. This was why people should cut out the useless middleman. But still, I wouldn't be an aspiring merchant if I was not ready to negotiate. From my calculations, my lady. She just snorts. I am not your lady, little boy. Oh, is that so? I stopped talking and just looked her directly in the eyes. As I was saying, my lady, from my calculations, it should take only 80 gold pieces to make a ship. So why charge me so much? She crosses her arms. What do you know? I have to pay my workers and pay my taxes to the merchant guild. It isn't that easy running a business, brat. I then just smirked and said, yeah, and I don't think you have much work, because well, I looked at her chest. I could see her face morphing into an angry scrawl. And what is that supposed to mean, boy? Well, my little lady, if you get offended by such a small fire, you shouldn't be in the forge. But what I mean is that you probably don't have a lot of customers because people usually don't trust a woman to be good at building ships. She smirked at my words as if she had her own secret. Oh, trust me, little boy. I can get by very well, so there is no need to be worried about me. I just looked at her with a serious face. Okay, enough foreplay, time to get to the good stuff. You mean the Iron Bank, right? Her eyes widened and her body froze in place. Well, it seemed like this was a bigger deal than I thought for her. So what? I smirked. Well then, this is good. Well then, the Iron Bank will lose its credibility if some rumor started saying that they are using a woman to build their ships. They obviously wouldn't want to work with the Iron Bank anymore, and then the Iron Bank will lose money. She then calmed down and in a grave tone said, don't worry about me, boy, I will get by. Then she turned around and started going back. What will happen if someone ruins the reputation of the Iron Bank? The Iron Bank will have its due. She stopped in her tracks, finally caught on to what I was saying, and turned around. So you are willing to risk your life for some gold? Obviously not. I was 99% sure of how this would play out. If I don't risk my life for gold, then what kind of merchant would I be? A living one, she replied without missing a beat. Damn, that was a good comeback. No, I would be a poor merchant, and a poor merchant is a fucking beggar. If the Iron Bank tries to silence me, well then they will silence you too. Also, if you kill me here today, I have already ordered some people in case I die. I then smiled creepily. Then I will drag you with me. Her eyes widened in horror. I could see the fear on her face. She also seemed kind of taken back by how I am so reckless with my life. But even if this failed, I could just scar my face, kill my traveling companions, and have a new start. No need for the faceless men to come after me. Though this will only be a last option kind of thing. She then let out a frustrated sigh. This woman would have probably had me killed if I didn't have two of my guards here. Okay, I will sell you the ships at the same price that I sell them to the Iron Bank, for 150 gold. She seemed annoyed and barely was able to get the words out of her mouth. Well then, let's see how far I could take this. With that in mind, I put a questioning look on my face. Who told you that I wanted a deal only as good as the Iron Bank? I want 100 gold pieces for each ship. What? No. I will barely be able to pay my workers and buy timber with that amount of money. She yelled out loud, getting the attention of everyone around us. I then put my pinky finger in my ear. Damn, she's a screamer, that one. Okay, I will give you 107 gold pieces per ship. That should help you, and that should help you stay afloat. She frowned. That is not how you make a deal. I made a bewildered face. What? You thought we were making a deal? No, dear. I then put a bright smile on my face. I am blackmailing you. Chapter 9. Title: The Tale of a Lady. After finishing the deal with the woman, Arthur ordered 15 middle-sized merchant ships. The order wasn't anything special, but as Arthur walked away, he had a smile on his face. Mora, female ship dealer, POV. As I was walking on to a certain place that I hated, my mind couldn't help but contemplate the decisions in my life and how things had gone. Everything had changed once Arthur Redhawk had come last year and made an offer I couldn't refuse. I was born a lucky woman to a rich merchant household. My father loved and doted on me. I also had 3 brothers. But I was still born as a woman. When my father passed away, no matter how hard I studied or how good I was at managing the money the family business brought in, my father never recognized me as someone to whom he would leave his fortune. When he died, he left it all to my brothers, who even to this day are so busy fighting against each other for that fortune. By now they had probably forgotten that I even existed or that they even had a sister. Still, I refused to be some weak little lady that will have to spread her legs for some fat and ugly merchant. so I started my own business. After all, living in Bravos, there was one thing that is always in demand but never enough supply. That was ships. Even my father had to wait in line when he wanted a new ship, and even then it would usually arrive a couple of days later than experienced. My business started like any other. I opened a workshop and tried to talk with some merchants to sell them ships. But like always, my gender got in my way. Even offering them half the market price, they wouldn't accept. That was when the Iron Bank noticed my talents and decided to use me. Unlike others who only saw my gender, the Iron Bank saw me more than that and invested heavily in my business. The ships that came out of the workshop were not only less than half the price in the market when sold to them, but they were also a level higher than them. No one knew my name, nor did they sing me praises. But it was an undeniable fact that I am the best ship maker in Bravos. After all, I was making ships for the Iron Bank. Of course, this was all secret. The Iron Bank was the strongest bank in all of Westros. The other banks were just credit men, loan sharks, compared to them. But recently I had learned that I might not be as smart as I like to think I am. True, there were faults in every person and no one was perfect. I too accept my faults. But that guy, no, that monster, he stripped me of everything I had. It all started 1 year ago, after that first initial deal. He came and got me to make some cheap ships for him. But he wasn't satisfied with only that. After some time, a number of my workers started dying in random ways. Some of them even went to work for other workshops that would pay them better. I tried to keep them here with some enticing offers, but soon I started losing money and even had to take some loans from the Iron Bank. But even then I was still losing money. My workers all left and even those who were loyal to me died mysteriously. Then someone bought all my debts from the Iron Bank and then he called in the collateral and took my company. He took my workers, my legacy, and then he hired 1,000 shipbuilders to build him an armada, and then I only became another supervisor in my own company. That certain someone who took everything from me is Arthur Frey, or as he is known now as Arthur Redhawk. In only 1 year he had become one of the most powerful men in Bravos. Currently, the only organizations that could challenge him in political power were the Iron Bank and the Guild Union of the Sea Lord. He had a fleet of 350 ships, 300 of them for trade and 50 to protect these trades. He also got himself 50 personal guards. 300 guards for his business, 100 accountants, 350 ship captains, 3,000 sailors. He had become a powerful man in his own right. Also, the person I suspected killed my workers was him. After all, he didn't get rich just because he had 350 ships. No, he got rich because when he came in there were other merchant businesses. There was competition amongst them and only the best could survive. Then they started dying in random and mysterious ways, like one of them died while walking and a vase was dropped in his head. Another slipped and fell into the canals, drowning to death. There was also this who got killed by his victim when he tried to rape someone, and they left a gap in the trade. Then conveniently Arthur fucking Redhawk came in to just nicely fill in the gaps. That reeked of foul play. Even if there was no proof, there was obviously an incentive that pointed straight at him as the biggest benefactor from these people's deaths. As those thoughts raged in my mind, I noticed that I had arrived at my destination. In front of me stood a large 3-floored mansion with a large iron fence around it. The mansion grounds also had a large front garden with flowers and trees. The place was littered with guards patrolling the surroundings. It was irritating to think about it, but each of them was loyal to Arthur. Or more correctly, loyal to his gold. They said that he paid the best in all of Bravos. Even the normal servants got paid 3 gold a year. So he had definitely bought their loyalty. As I walked to the front gates, one of the guards looked at me. Bet they were surprised. After all, there had been no notification of my arrival here. I wanted to take the owner of this place by surprise. But unlike I expected, the guard only nodded in my direction. Lord Redhawk has been expecting you, my lady. Damn it. This was what I hated about Arthur Redhawk. He always knew what was happening. Like a little fucking creep. He knew way too much about everyone and everything. Taking a deep breath, I calmed myself down. This wasn't too surprising. Arthur Redhawk might be a scumbag, but he wasn't incompetent. But I was prepared this time. I remembered the aggressive approach he made during our first deal. Or as he called it, blackmail. Let's see how he will like some of his own medicine. Chapter 10. Title: Being Sure. At the front gate, a maid came and offered to escort me to her lord. As I followed along, I passed the fountain in the middle of the garden. It had the statue of an eagle in the middle and the thing seemed almost alive as its eyes shone red. After that uncomfortable experience, I went inside the mansion and the first thing I noticed was the banner on the wall. Something that would catch the eye of anyone who entered. It was a red hawk spreading its wings in a black and green field. This was Arthur's banner, and also where his new banner name came from, Red Hawk. He was more of a snake than a hawk. but the banner rarely represented the people that owned it. "This way, my lady," said the maid as she pointed where we would be walking towards. Damn that man, he still kept calling me a lady to this day, and even his servants did the same. I knew he did this to spite me. As we went on the 3rd floor at the end of the corridor, I was guided towards a room with 2 guards outside. When I got closer, I could hear the means of a woman. Yes. Fuck me, my king. Yes, the 2 slave whores he bought. The degenerate already had 3 kids with 3 different mothers. 2 were slaves and one of the women was a maid. "Come inside me, my king." A loud screech followed after that demand. I heard a grunt and then, "Guards, call for Alyssa, the cute blonde maid, real quick. I need her for something." And there was the degenerate himself. It was almost unbelievable sometimes that a man as successful as him had so much free time. The maid who had guided me here shifted nervously next to me. "My lord, Alyssa is taking care of the kids." There was no answer initially and only the sound of some shuffling within the room. After that, the door opened and out of it came Arthur. He was wearing only a pair of short pants and his surprisingly muscular body was quite a sight. I always assumed that the tales of him being a warrior were lies, but it seemed like there might be some truth to those rumors. But all of those thoughts of him being some warrior disappeared from my mind once our eyes met. His dark eyes locked into my brown ones and an almost unnoticeable smirk appeared on his face. "Well, hello there, my lady. I am truly sorry for you to have found me in such an embarrassing situation." I just snorted in annoyance at his lies. "You know everything about everyone, so spare me the pleasantries, Arthur." For a split second I felt a chill go down my spine as I looked at him. Arthur was still smiling. "I let such a lady like you wait for me outside of my door. That is very rude of me. Please come inside, my lady." No way I was going to his creepy harem room. So I calmly stated, "No thank you. I only need a moment from you." He went back inside the room and came back out after not even a minute. Now he had put on some clothes and looked presentable, wearing black pants and a baggy aristocratic white shirt. "Follow me, my lady, let me escort you to my office," he said politely, the polite smile never leaving his face. As we went to the room closest to the bedroom, he just fucked 2 women. "You guys stay outside," he ordered the guards as we entered the new room that seemed like a normal office, though it seemed a little too modest in comparison to the rest of the wealth displayed in the mansion. He sat on his chair behind the desk and then gestured to me to sit down too. I reluctantly sat down. "So tell me," he started the conversation first, "what do you want to talk to me about?" And now it was time to play this man who thought with his balls and not his brain. Lover, everyone else, even Arthur, had a weakness. I looked into the merchants' deaths recently. Even though I started the conversation like that, there was no reaction from him. Not surprisingly, I have found some suspicious activities that might indicate foul play on your part. "Oh." Arthur raised a questioning brow, seemingly unbothered by this. "Is that so?" There was an uncomfortable silence between us as neither said anything. Arthur sighed and leaned back on his chair. "What are your so-called accusations?" he asked in a bored manner, looking at his nails. This vile man truly knew how to annoy someone. I took a deep breath before I exploded at him. "There are accusations that you might have hired assassins to deal with your rivals." He frowned for a split second, and then his face relaxed. In the end, he just waved off my insinuated threats. "I'm sure they are all lies. After all, the Iron Bank has already investigated the problem, and even though the deaths may seem suspicious, they were truly accidents." Yeah, I knew that he and the Iron Bank were as thick as thieves for some reason. They were always backing up and covering for each other. This was all due to after losing my business to Arthur, he started selling ships to the Iron Bank for the best prices, only 130 gold for medium-sized ships. Yeah, but I have been thinking lately. I drew on, trying to make him squirm. Because someone might be assassinating the merchants. I am planning to put this on the attention of the Sea Lord. His expressions didn't show anything. But I knew that he was smart enough to know that he would be in big trouble if the Sea Lord, the voted ruler of Bravos, was to get involved in this. Arthur would be under constant watch if the Sea Lord got involved, and the bastard wouldn't be able to do anything. And in case he slipped up, he would be held responsible for his actions. I had everything planned and used all of the savings to hire 30 Sellswords. They would escort me to the Sea Lord's palace when I got out of here, just in case. Of course, Arthur was undoubtedly smart enough to see what I was insinuating here. There was a way for him to get out of this. He just needed to bribe me to not talk. That would buy my silence, temporarily, until I eventually will come back and next time demand more. So let's see, what will your answer be, Arthur? You have already lost all just because you underestimated me. Go tell him I don't care." He shrugged, still acting unbothered by the situation. "Oh, so that was your answer? Well then. Excuse me." I got up and turned around, ready to walk away. "Oh yeah, Mora, you forgot something," Arthur called out to me, and as I turned around, swish, asterisk. I felt something piercing my neck, and it felt like hot liquid was spewing out. I looked at Arthur and saw the indifferent look on his face. I get what was happening. I could feel my vision going dark around the edges of my eyes, but before darkness calmed me, I heard some words from my killer. "When you search for something, always be sure what it is that you are looking for. That way you won't be led astray." His words felt strange for some reason. Then I heard footsteps, probably his. The sound stopped and I faintly heard him say something again. "Oh, and I never underestimated you just because you are a woman. That would be foolish. You were ambitious, so that also made you dangerous, and I always expected for you to bare your fangs at me." Then I felt him rubbing my hair. "But you were still very useful nonetheless." Chapter 11. Title: Useful. Arthur, MC, POV. I cleaned my knife with a white cloth as I looked at Mora's dead body. While sitting at the table, I couldn't help but try to comprehend her thinking process. Did she think I wouldn't kill her? True, this will leave many clues that would lead to me, and many people saw her here too. Maybe she didn't understand just how much power money had. Just a couple of gold pieces will shut up anyone and have them say that they had never seen her. Maybe her mistake was trusting others to have her back. Sadly, everyone around here wanted gold pieces, and they wouldn't try and fuck over someone like me and risk their lives. The ones who thought themselves heroic would try, and would die. Usually, those kinds of heroic people pulled the ones around them into trouble too. So their family will have to be killed also. After all, I wouldn't want some son coming at me for revenge when I killed his father. Many people misunderstood and thought that this would start an endless chain reaction in which the wife's family would then go after me for killing her daughter. But that wasn't the case. After all, would they want to risk their whole family's life for a daughter who was already dead? There were still other family members, so they wouldn't want them dead too. People were cowards deep down. Many spoke the talk but couldn't walk the walk. Though being a coward wasn't necessarily a bad thing, it would keep you from making stupid mistakes and not do something like going against people who could annihilate their whole family. I was a coward too. I'm not strong enough to give my enemies a second chance. A truly strong man would have taken the chance with Mora and tried to reconcile things even after she did something like this. But I was a coward after all, and took the easy route, killing her off and eliminating my worries of her ever going against me. Looking at Mora, I couldn't help but label her as a brave person. She had the guts to come and threaten me in my home territory. Sure, it was a stupid decision, but a brave one at the same time. She feared me but overcame that and came to threaten me. Sigh, what a shame for her to end up this way. She was so useful with her determined demeanor and work. Because even when she worked for me, the ships she built were of very good quality. Her pride and honor wouldn't allow her to ever give me a reason to ridicule her abilities or the ships. Look, we're doing all that got her, a corpse on the ground. I used to be something reckless myself back in my first world. Monsters aren't born, they are made. Guards, I called out nonchalantly. In an instant, the door is opened and a dozen guards rush in. Their eyes wandered around, looking for an enemy. When they saw the body on the ground, the shock on their faces was visible. But they didn't ask any questions. After all the gold I spent choking down their throats, they'd better not ask or say anything. I grabbed a goblet of water nearby and drank some and started explaining what happened. She tried to assassinate me, chop her up, and drop the pieces in the sewers. You will gain 3 gold coins as a bonus after you get the job done. They nodded silently and took the body away. As they were almost outside, I called them over again. Oh yeah, tell someone to clean the blood. If it stains, change the floor. After that, I went outside and entered the room close by. Or as many people called it behind my back, the harem room. When I got inside, 2 women laid down on the bed, sweat glittering on their skins. One of the women had very distinctive Valyrian features with silver hair and purple eyes, Aldea. The other had olive skin and brown eyes. Her name was Kara. Both were in their 20s. I didn't bother to remember their exact ages. Kara was tired, breathing heavily, and she looked at me. Did you kill someone again? I only narrowed my eyes at her and she backed off and apologized. Sorry, that was out of line. I mean, did you allegedly kill someone again? The smirk on her face was as close as she would get to a smile. No, of course not, I replied politely. But her smirk was enough to tell me that she wasn't stupid enough to not see such things. Can you stop it with the boring stuff, Kara? Whined the silver-haired Aldea. All this serious talk is bumming me out. Let's continue where we left off. Shit it, slut, Kara was fast on her reply, not missing a beat and looking at the silver-haired woman like she was a bug. The only thing you care about is sucking and fucking, so don't try talking too much. Aldea looked annoyed by this and puffed out her chest, and her body shone with sweat, making her even more alluring. And the sly look she sent me made it obvious that this was an intentional move from her. She then looked back at her rival, and opened her mouth about to say something and then stopped. Oops, I forgot what I was about to say, Arthur. You made me forget. Kara turned her back on it and laid on the bed. I am tired and sleepy, so have the slut do all the work this time. She will like it even if you break her. The silver-haired woman ignored her completely and kept smirking at me and biting her lips sensually. I had bought them as slaves, but when I had come back to Bravos, I released them to become free. Obviously, they came back to me even as free people. It wasn't out of some sense of gratitude or love. Because even if they were free, what were they gonna do? Become bankers? They were pleasure slaves. At best they would become prostitutes if they didn't follow me. So rather than going to brothels to be beaten and abused by strangers, they would rather come to me, where they got the best treatment and only needed to satisfy my urges and give me kids. Bravos was a free city, slavery was illegal. Money was useless in this matter too. But just like Daenerys freeing slaves didn't work, this was also the same kind of situation. Just going and telling them that they were free didn't mean anything. If one wanted to collapse slavery as an institution, it needed to be done by someone who knew the dirty deeds like the back of their hand. Even killing their masters wouldn't be enough. Arthur, the Valyrian woman called my name, bringing me out of my thoughts while looking at me like a vixen. She was always playful and ready whenever I needed her. They have both been good at their job and given me children. One of them was Oliver. He had my dark eyes and his mother's silver hair. The other woman in my bed had also given me a child. His name was Trey, and he looked like a mini-me. I also had another child, and that was with the maid. We only did the deed once during a fest when I was bored. As I laid down on the bed with them, and Purple Eyes looked straight at mine and she pulled my pants down. She had a smile on her face as she swallowed my shaft. Well, I knew I was a good master to them and inspired loyalty with gold of course. While laying down, my mind worked on new plans. After all, only those who always plan and are adaptable can succeed in life. Aldea seemed to get the signal and didn't make any noise while bobbing her head up and down. I knew that the Iron Bank had some spies in the mansion, so it won't take long till they learn of this incident. I already told everyone who served me that if they were offered a bribe, they should take it. Then they can come and tell me about it. With that, I will be able to come up with some false information to feed to my enemies and friends. Also, for every spy the Iron Bank had on me, I had 10 on them. Humans or otherwise. Suddenly the door opened, bringing me outside of my thoughts, and saw that it was the maid. She had green eyes and dark hair. My lord, the maid bowed slightly, making her braless breasts jiggle. That right, there was a reason I chose her amongst all the other maids. You called for me? I did? Oh, right, when the now-dead female shipbuilder came to my door and called her over. Yeah, you must have been tired taking care of the kids. They can be quite a hassle sometimes. Wait, I think it was a different maid I called here. The guards probably don't know who Alyssa even was. Well, she resembled a Lannisters, probably some bastard of that bloodline. After all, with how many Lannisters there are, I don't doubt one of them came to Bravos sometime in his life to spread his genes. She smiled happily at the mention of the kids. No, my lord. It's quite nice taking care of them, though young Oliver always seems to be a little harsh. Maybe he took after your warrior side? But did you know that Trey can crawl the fastest? Also, Gerald's face as she tries to figure things out is so cute. I just zoned out the rest. 2 of those babies weren't even her kids. But she always took care of them and she bragged like they were her own. Well, Kara and Aldea wouldn't be good mothers anyway. It didn't matter that she took care of the kids. Oh yeah, this maid's name is Flitz. I forgot that for a second. Okay, so they are all impressive, I interrupted her. But the reason you were called here was to have some fun. Previously she had been a maid but now was a head maid. Her duties were taking care of the children and ordering the other maids around. Though I had another head maid to manage the maids. Flitz would be too soft on the workers and let them laze around. Being kind wasn't always a good trait. One needed to know when to put their foot down. By fun, she stuttered and her ears turned red as she blushed. Do you mean have, you know? She then looked at Aldea, who was still enthusiastically sucking me off. I wouldn't have noticed that Felice was even pregnant if I didn't get a signal from my blood magic that I had another child of my blood in her. So Gerald would have been just another kid in the streets if it hadn't been for my blood magic. Come on now it's time for you to relax, I mentioned towards her, and the maid shyly nodded while looking at the silver head swallowing my shaft like a champ. Having you burn out there and get too tired, who would be able to educate the youngsters? So please take care of yourself." My words made her blush slightly again. She swallowed her nervousness and took off her clothes. The giant breasts that were hidden under that maid's uniform spilled out. The flush that came to her face was something that always confused me. After all, we have had sex multiple times, yet she always seemed embarrassed. Was she faking it? I doubted it. Her emotions were always too pure. "Come on now, don't be too embarrassed," I encouraged her, but she looked at the silver head. Aldea just continued her nocturnal acts. "Oh, so that's what's bothering you? Don't worry, I won't force you to kiss her or do something with another woman." "Thank you, my lord," she sighed in relief. "No," I smiled gently. "There is no need to thank me," and waved off her kindness. I patted her silver head and she looked at me. Immediately Aldea got my signals and started crawling towards me. The maid, Flitz, looked at us from the sidelines while Kara was asleep. "What are we going to do to me now?" Aldea whispered in my ear, her hands tailing my body. She was about to saddle me. She always knew what I wanted. "Are you gonna split me in half with your cock while the innocent young maid watches us?" I pushed Aldea to the side and pinned her to the bed. Her breasts bounced beautifully due to the movement, and the vixen smile on her face made her irresistible. She then leaned forward and whispered, "Destroy me," as her legs locked in around my waist and dragged me closer to her. Aldea's hand trailed and she touched the dagger that I had just used to kill someone before coming here, and let her know while picking it up and putting it in my hand. "Well, that dagger seems quite sharp. How about we play a little game?" Taking a hold of my hand, she slowly dragged the dagger towards her throat. The smile on her face was an excited smile and her eyes had an intense look as she gazed at me. "Be careful please," she said playfully as I penetrated her. Her nether hole perfectly hugged my shaft, her insides warm and tight. "Don't get me too excited or else if my body jolts the dagger will rip out my throat." This wasn't something I had ever done before, having someone endanger her life just for the thrill of it. "If you keep this up." I picked up the dagger and swung it down, her eyes widened in fear. The fearless act was all gone and only raw fear adorned her well-being. Whoosh! The dagger stabbed right next to her face, sinking in the bed down to the hilt. "Only I control when you die, even if you yearn for death unless I want you to. Aldea, you aren't allowed to die." With that, I grabbed her by the hips tightly and impaled her with my shaft, each thrust going deeper than the other. Her surprised moans rocketed the room as a crazed smile adorned the beautiful face. "Yes," she agreed, but it came out more like a moan. Her eyes wandered towards the naked maid every now and then, and with a smirk, I asked, "Do you like it when someone is watching you get fucked like a two-bit slut?" I murmured. "Do you?" "Yes," she moaned, not bothering to suppress her voice, trying to use her feet that were locked behind my wrist to drag me even closer to her. I picked her up, our bodies mashing together as I was still inside her as her back slammed against the wall. Her insides got even tighter from the pain and she hungrily kissed me. "Let's make another child and have that dumb cow take care of them." The agreement that she was expecting didn't come, and she seemed a little disappointed. But my answer only came with the fastening of my thrusts, till I felt her insides clench even tighter, this time making my junk almost feel pain from how tight she got. That was my limit as I spilled my cum inside of her, and the horny look on her face didn't subside at all. "You are my favorite girl," I complimented her and kept thrusting in her, not even bothering to have her clean my seed out of her. I ignored that proud smirk that appeared on one face due to me calling her my favorite. Hours passed as our bodies were connected as one for hours. Though I used the maid sometimes, she wasn't the same as Aldea. The latter always got up no matter what and seemed to become even more excited the more control I expressed over her and the more demanding I became. In the end, though, both ended up in the bed with my seed spilling out of them. I put on some clothes and went to see my kids. They were playing together in a children's room, and a maid was always looking after them. Gerald, the son that I had with the maid. He was alone, trying to mix some shapes, and Oliver was bullying his other brother. "Oliver, what did I tell you?" I picked up my silver-haired son, getting him away from Trey, who looked like a mini-me with dark hair and eyes. "Never hurt your family, we are all that we have. Blood is thicker than water, always remember that." He just looked at me and smiled. A baby wouldn't understand anything I said anyway. "Dada," he called out as his hands extended towards me. It brought a smile to my face. I looked towards the maid and she was standing over Gerald, trying to teach the annoyed kid about shapes that he wasn't getting right. Trey, on the other hand, just went back to playing with his toys, not caring about any of his brother's actions. "Sigh, what am I gonna do with you all?" I sighed, and as if on purpose, Oliver grabbed my hair. His grip was quite strong for a baby. Kids, I had opened orphanages around Bravos and other cities to care for the children. I also took a page off Varys' book and started training the smallest orphan boys and girls. I had ex-thieves train the children how to climb buildings. Some sailors and shipbuilders were brought to teach them how to get a profession or even fight in case they want to become guards. There was an unspoken deal with the orphans, that they must spy for me to repay them for taking them off the streets and raising them. Also, they would get rewarded if they got any important information. Places like Lorith, Pentos, Mir, Tyrosh, Lys, Volantis, Illyria, Tolos, Myrene, Yunkai, Astapor, Newguys, and many more had orphanages sponsored by me. Bravos had 5 places like that. Every city that my ships went to trade had places like that, and the captains of my ships would bring news back to me. I could say that even Varys doesn't have as many spies as me. I had more wealth and resources than him dedicated to building my spy networks. When the time came when the new orphans grew into adulthood, my spy network would be the best in the world. While Varys was smart, he didn't have the modern knowledge I had for spy networks. As I played silly games with my kids and hearing them laugh made me happy too. But that moment was interrupted when a guard came in. "My lord, we have disposed of the..." He noticed my kids in the room and chose his words wisely. "Red trash." That meant that the guards had gotten rid of the dead body. Did it cause a stain on the floor? That was my only worry now. I didn't need to waste any thoughts to feel nervous about a dead enemy. "No, my lord," he answered, and I waved him off. But as soon as he went away, another guard came in, and this time I recognized him as one of the people in charge of reporting important news to me. "My lord, it got tiring to hear people call me that. The informants have reported that the Myrish merchant, Odinos, has gone against you and started trading glass with Bravos directly, and even openly challenged you to beat him in trade." "Good, I will beat him in trade," I nodded. "After his corpse rests at the bottom of the sea, he won't be able to trade, so it will end in my victory." After saying that, I looked at the guard and the maid standing by the side and taking care of the kids. "You can both leave." They gave a slight bow and left the room. As soon as the door closed, a red hawk landed on my shoulder and I gave it a small cloth ball. It was concentrated salt, something made by magic, so even a grain would kill this man by making him over-consume salt, causing his kidneys to shut down. The gawk can enter his halls and quietly wait in the darkness till it's dinner time and then drop this silently after the food taster did his job. The good thing about this was that it didn't leave any traces of magic in it. The hawk flew off to do its job without me needing to tell it anything. It already knew my orders due to the telepathic-like bond we share. While the spy network costs a lot to keep up, it already gave me useful information on my competitors and who needed to get their throats slit, or have a bird accidentally fly and knock over a vase from a roof, bringing it down in their heads, killing them. Magic was quite the neat trick if it was kept a secret. There wouldn't be a clue leading to me being involved with any of the murders either. Sometimes I even use hypnosis to control a drunk to kill someone for me, though I couldn't control someone with a strong will or intelligence. So this method had become kinda outdated lately. It wasn't worth using. Too risky. What if there was another guy like me out there who only acted drunk? Though the spy network by itself wasn't perfect yet and there have been some hiccups. But one of them stood out the most, and that was Ashai. The place didn't have any kids. So I had to send some adult spies to get me some reading material. I also killed the spies after they brought what I asked for. But the news that they brought was creepy. Everyone in Ashai wore cloaks and masks. The books on the usage of magic were phenomenal though. And while there wasn't any magic that would allow someone to rule the world or allow someone to kill 100 people in one spell, much new magic became available and useful. Just watching the marvel of this supernatural phenomenon was amazing. For someone like me, magic was better than sex could ever be. Though I can't use magic too much or I will start losing lifespan, so that was a bummer. Bye, I waved off to my kids and called some maids to take care of them. When I went to my office, a smile came to my face at the cleanliness of the place. Also, no blood had stuck to the floor and neither did it smell like blood. Paying those maids so much was worth it after all. I saw the goblet of water on my desk and picked it up and threw the water in the air. But instead of falling, the water just stood there as if it was stuck in time. Simple tricks like this, something that wasn't even generally useful except to stop small amounts of water from falling on the floor, was amazing. I could spend all day just playing with this. But the biggest change now was that this wide knowledge of magic had given me the confidence to experiment with it a little. Everyone wanted to live forever, even those who didn't would want to live a little longer at the end of their lives. Sure, some might say that it would be devastating as one would have to handle losing people they love along the way. But most of them didn't understand that time heals everything. If someone dear to you died, then 4 years later that feeling would be dull till you no longer thought about them. Life always went on. But when the time came for me to try and become immortal, there was no perfect way. Even the undying ones have had their minds changed and morphed by drinking shade of the evening. That was no life, because if one wasn't oneself with all his memories and experiences in life, then what was the use for all of this? The blood raven had connected his body to tree roots. That was even a worse method than the undying ones. In the end, the solution I came to wasn't to zombify myself where I would lose my mind. Well, maybe I would do that later in life if there was no other chance. But my main spell was called Blood Descendant Body Resurrection. It was the reason I had started wanting to have more children, bastards and legitimate ones. Though this method was extremely risky, it was the only one where I would be able to keep my sanity and power at the same time. I also had the chance to grow stronger too. How this worked was that after my death, my Red Hawk familiar would come and touch my body, picking up my soul and then transferring it over to one of my blood descendants. Then I take control of their body, my thoughts and sense of self should stay the same. Ironically, changing bodies was the only way where I could be myself. My existence from now on will be like a snake eating its tail. I will be the head while my sons will be the tail. To live on, I had to continue with a form of self-cannibalism. This was sad. I loved my children even if they were only born to become my future bodies. Well, it doesn't matter, they will live the best life they can, I guarantee it. I will try to hold on to this body for as long as I can before taking them over. Let them experience life fully, eventually they would die anyway. Though this was all speculation and there had been 0 tests done on this spell, so I wasn't sure if it even worked. Plus there were many other risks too. For example, if my hawk got shot down while carrying my soul, then I would die too. What if the body I went to was infertile? After all, the spell was intended for me to possess my descendants. So if the new body also became myself, then would I only be able to possess the descendants that I will make with that body? Just so many uncertain things. Why can't this world's magic be more certain and simple? Every spellbook that I read always had some parts that contradicted another book. There was no definition of a good way to use magic without hurting the user in some way. As night came around, my spy before dinner reports came in. A man dressed in rags walked into the office with no one bothering him. My lord, Westros doesn't seem to have anything too big going on. Also, the spider might be onto us. Getting any information out of King's Landing has become impossible. Did Varys find out we were the ones behind the spies? I asked while shuffling through some letters. Did he capture any of our guys? A couple of the child spies have been drowned under suspicious circumstances. Well, that wasn't surprising. After all, the bald eunuch did cut off children's tongues. I wouldn't put it past him to kill a couple of kids. But don't worry, neither the young nor older spies in Westeros know who the real ringleader is. So even under torture, they won't say anything about us. Okay, then stop trying to put spies in King's Landing for the moment. No need to send our informants to the chopping block. That bald bastard was good at this. While I had been able to play on equal footing with him and even surpass him in some places due to the huge amount of money I put in the network. But in King's Landing, no matter what, no spy of mine has been able to live past a week in there. What other news is there? A tourney has been organized in Harrenhal, he reported, and I could sense that he was uncertain about something. Also, rumors say that the First Prince is planning to use the gathering as a meeting of lords and organize a takeover. After all, the owners of Harrenhal couldn't afford this tourney. Well, it seemed like Robert's rebellion was about to start soon. Now is my chance. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Support the writer. Don't forget to like, sub, share, and donate for more videos.